I'm going to tell you a story, but I'll be honest, it doesn't have a happy ending.
After getting a taste of Narcos, Netflix has proceeded to provide us with another drug dealer documentary called Narcos Mexico. I was skeptical at first, as I thought that it was just a continuation from their previous success with Narcos. Thankfully, I was wrong, and boy, was I happy to be wrong. And with the second upcoming season, I decided to make a video highlighting the best moments from Narcos Mexico Season 1.
Do you smoke pot? Guess it's okay if you do. There are laws now that say it's cool. I don't agree with them.
At number 10, we have Rafa meeting his mentor and the introduction to the new student. The series begins with a voiceover describing the drug scene down in Mexico, and then we are introduced to one of the main characters in the series, Rafa. He is a savant in growing marijuana, and his love for his craft shows. He visits his mentor and finds that the mentor has a little girl on his lap. His mentor mentions that this is his new student and that she is almost as good as she is. He gives her a bud and asks her to estimate when the batch will be ready for harvesting. The little girl takes a sniff and says with absolute confidence, 1 week. The mentor then hands it to Rafa, and he says the same. The mentor is pleased and tells his farm boy to harvest it in a week. This scene is not amazing in and of itself, but it does show just how the drug scene in Mexico was so accepted as the norm that even little children were being groomed to be pot growers. It is actually a pretty somber moment when you realize just how Mexicans depend on drugs for their livelihood.
Like any innovator, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo saw things others didn't. And once his dream was realized, it seemed so obvious you couldn't believe no one had thought of it before. But they hadn't.
Moving away from the emotion to the action, next up we have cops attacking the drug dealers in Sinaloa and killing them. The cops are deeply entrenched in the drug scene in Mexico, and we see them having a conversation on the tribute that they have been given to allow for the drug trade to proceed. One of the cops says to the boss that the tribute is simply leftovers. The boss is mad and wants to send a message that they do not accept leftovers and orders a hit. One of the cartels, while having a family brunch, is gunned down by the police in cold blood. These animals do not even spare the women and children in getting their message across. Even the warmongers of old left the women and children be when sending these types of messages. This little act paves the way for a lot of the problems that face the cops in the series. Sometimes be careful with the messages you send. They might just come back to bite you in the ass.
Hey, you ever hear of the DEA?
Yeah, it's like drug enforcement agency or something.
Administration. Yeah. Well, Chico over here keeps saying he's working undercover for him.
At number 8, Kiki proves that he is not an undercover cop. We are introduced to another important protagonist of the series, an undercover DEA cop. He is in the middle of a sting operation trying to get in on a gang to seize the drugs that they are distributing in the US. He is wearing a wire, and as the gang members are doubting him, he turns up the volume of the TV, picks a gun, hands it to one of them, and points the gun at himself. The backup team gets nervous immediately as they can see but they can't hear. Kiki, the DEA agent, goes ahead to tell the drug dealers that if he was a cop, now that they are holding a gun to his head and can't hear anything, that they should be storming the place trying to arrest everyone. The moment slows down as the drug dealers are unsure of what to do and the cops don't know how to proceed. Eventually, the drug dealer puts the gun down and laughs. Kiki joins him in his laughter, but for an entirely different reason, being that he survived. Unfortunately, after he gains their trust, another police unit raids them and puts his work all down the drain.
What's that?
Up next, Kiki goes undercover to Mexico and almost gets caught when he is leaving. After the small mishap with being busted for no apparent reason by another police unit, Kiki gets on the trail of another drug cartel from Mexico which provides most of the marijuana. In order to find evidence, he goes undercover again as a plantation worker who harvests the pot. He then gets to see a farm that is so huge he can't see its end and asks fellow planters questions as he continues to gather evidence. Things started going awry when the farmers are being herded out like sheep. One of the plantation managers notices him acting strange. He then follows him, trying to ensure that this is actually a harvester they got. Kiki realizes he has a tail and tries his best to blend in with the crowd, unsure of how things will fare if he is caught. The harvesters are then put into a bus and have their heads covered so they don't know the location of the farm. Kiki also receives similar treatment. The manager walks into the bus and tries to find him. He is just about to start removing their head covers when lo and behold, saved by the bell. The phone rings and it is their leader who wants to speak to the plantation manager. The manager has no choice but to lay his worries to rest as he goes to pick up the call. Kiki manages to escape by a breath. Lucky him. Don Miguel orders the killing of cops as revenge comes in at number 6. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and in other instances served with a smile and cordially. Don Miguel has received complaints from the cartels that revenge must be had on the cops who killed a family. Don Miguel, during a ball, then proceeds to speak to the head of the police and politely informs him that his men must be killed as revenge. The Don says everyone is related to everyone. You cannot kill one person who does not have relatives who are willing to revenge. The cop is livid, but there is nothing that he can do. Cut to the scene of the officers being murdered, and the contrast with the ball that is going on shows that sometimes decisions have repercussions that cannot be mitigated, no matter how powerful you may be. At number 5, we have the attack and burning of the merchandise in Rafa's farm. With the DEA agent Kiki's investigation deepening, they find a way to raid the farm that he had infiltrated before. They then round up the harvesters and managers, of course in the process killing a few, and proceed to burn down the entire farm. It is said that people in the town over reported feeling a bit funny. I'm not an avid weed smoker, but I have to say, I was pretty sad with all that pot that was burned down. In comparison with how much money it was worth, it's truly a huge loss. Since Rafa managed to escape before the raid, we see him watching from a hill as his plantation is burned down. You could see his pain, not from the loss of the money, but from the loss of the quality production that he has dedicated his life to grow. He wants his revenge, and he shall soon have it on the police who burned down his babies.
Segurísimo que ya lo sabe.
¡Cállese! ¡Miguel Ángel, ¿de qué?
Don Miguel meeting with Pablo Escobar comes in at number 4. At the height of Don Miguel's power, he decides to expand his scope of operations by including cocaine in his dealings. He goes to Colombia and strikes a deal with the Cali cartel. On his way back from the deal, he is abducted and brought to a mansion for a meeting that he did not solicit. He is not roughed up, which is quite strange, until we see who he is meeting. Pablo Escobar, our favorite Colombian drug lord. This honestly came as a surprise to me. I didn't think there would be a crossover of characters. Pablo then asks him why he made a deal with the Cali cartel, who, if you can remember, was a rival gang to Pablo's cartel. Don Miguel then proceeds to tell Pablo that he has been told that Pablo is volatile and not a good business partner. Pablo doesn't flip out, but rather provides a deal for Don Miguel with a strict warning. Should anything go wrong, then the problem had better be from the Cali supply and not his own. Pablo remains the same, and it is nice seeing him and his relationship with the Mexican cartels that was not shown in the original Narcos. Rafa gets his merchandise robbed by Don Falcon comes in at number 3. In the process of Don Miguel's taking over the drug scene in Mexico, he makes promises to other Dons to get them to work together. One of them is Don Falcon, a sneaky-looking man. Don Falcon, because he feels that the promises made have not been met, he decides to rob a shipment from Rafa. Rafa is angry, but Don Falcon doesn't care. And to make things just that more spicy, Don Falcon has brought the authorities as his muscle. Rafa has to succumb to the theft, and just for good measure, Don Falcon orders one of his men to burn down the product. The man then proceeds to use a rocket launcher to blow up the truck. A freaking rocket launcher! It's said that you should not use all your strength to kill an insect, but clearly, he didn't get this memo. He uses his biggest gun to pass along this message. Talk about over the top. At the runner-up spot, we have the killing of Don Falcon by the police. Don Falcon keeps finding ways to be at loggerheads with Don Miguel, which prompts him to send a mediator to deal with him. The mediator manages to broker a deal that Don Falcon is not too happy with, but has to accept as the trend is moving towards Don Miguel. As the mediator leaves, she finds that the authorities are right outside Don Falcon's house. The authorities inspect her and are instructed to let her go. Don Falcon is curious as these are the same groups he used to raid Don Miguel's shipment, and he didn't call them. The authorities then proceeded to arrest him as Don Falcon realizes that Don Miguel made a better deal with them. He surrenders peacefully, and as he is walked to the car, he is shot in the back of the head in cold blood. It seems that in this drug scene, there is no honor among thieves as loyalty can be bought out. I bet he didn't see that one coming.
¿Dónde te metes, cabrón? Te estuve hablando.
And my favorite scene of all, in at number 1, is Don Miguel kills a police officer by the elevator. Don Miguel is still being harassed by the police boss. The police boss keeps nagging for an increase in the wages for protection and leaving them alone. Don Miguel is patient and explains that things have gotten more difficult during this period. The police boss refuses to listen and keeps nagging. At the end of the meeting, while they are walking to the elevator, the police boss snaps a switch in Don Miguel's head. Don Miguel picks an ashtray and bashes his skull in till he is exhausted in front of the others. He then proceeds to say if anyone has a problem, they know where to find him. Throughout the series, Don Miguel is seen as a mild-tempered man, but this moment is so absolutely boss, and he finally acts as a numero uno. And so with that, this list comes to an end. But what have been your favorite Narcos Mexico moments? And what do you think we may have missed on our list? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop of all my future uploads. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time on the TV Regent.